Development and trade. Right now, I'm giving the floor to the moderator, Oleksii Mushak. Good afternoon, friends, colleagues, everybody present. My name is Oleksii Mushak, and right now I will be the moderator of this panel. Why am I really here? I'm here to give an opportunity for good answers to
Не
show
для того, щоб ми тут знайшли готові рішення, тому що готових рішень, як правило, не буває, бо якщо і приносять готові рішення, то це як штучна історія. Я тут для того, щоб з'явилися artificial solutions. I'm here for strong questions to appear who
really give birth to strong, motivating solutions which will bring us to qualitative change. Our platform will be built in the following way. Right now, we will show you a video for a couple minutes, and then we will move on directly to the discussion. Thank you very much. In Ukraine, just like in the rest of the world, the women have won the right to work, earn money, and do what they like, but their efforts are not universally recognized. 27% of women working 1 hour more than men still earn less. Besides obvious reasons, this injustice is also a negative influence to the global economy. Right now, the gender gap in the world is 41%. In the study analyzes four main numbers: economic participation opportunities, education level, health and life expectancy, political rights of both sexes. The average wage of men is higher than that of a woman. The state statistics agency shows more concrete numbers. Women in Ukraine work more than men, and after work have to do household chores. Despite the fact that Ukrainians have equal access to education, the chances to find a good job for both sexes are not equal. If you were to talk about women employees, the number is even less. All of the data shows that women have to encounter unseen but strong barriers to professional actualization. How long will we ignore this injustice? Thank you very much for this video. Today we'll have
в Верховній Раді я постараюся ще сьогодні дуже мало говорити, тому що народні депутати
I'm gonna try to speak not briefly, because MPs like to speak in general very much. I'd like to build the discussion the following way. We have 4 speakers and 57 minutes. Every speaker will have 5 minutes approximately for their reports. I will be following the time, and after that I would like to have a lively discussion and answers from the audience. I reserve the right to ask a question to a speaker after their speech. Some people may think it provocative or some such, but I'm going to reserve that right. I'm going to begin the discussion with presenting the first speaker. This is Libanova, the head of the Institute of Demography and Social Studies of the National Academy of Ukraine. Right now we've watched the video, and the last question was, how long will we ignore this injustice, related also to the fact that women earn more than men, but men live less than women. Don't they pay their price like that, in that way? Thank you. You have 5 minutes. That's a very interesting question, but I would like to turn your attention to an absolutely other aspect of this problem. Really, though, we women believe that we are not as qualified, that we are not as competitive as men. And the representation of women among owners and top managers of Ukrainian business, for me it was surprising when I was preparing for this meeting, that women among owners, among business owners, are much more than top managers in all spheres. This raises a lot of questions. Do women themselves receive this status, or it was given to them? And the other thing I would like to turn your attention to, I've just made such a beautiful presentation. I have to shuffle through it. Just a minute. There it is. 76% of entrepreneurs believe that women and men are equally valuable employees. 76%. How many women believe like this? Only 66% of women believe this. So we ourselves agree with the fact that we are not competitive. And that's why we don't want to fight for these workplaces where we have to compete with men. Where there are some traditional female places like secretary or some such, I don't want to say maid, but something like that. Then we compete. When it's related to top managing, when it's about the at least the department head in the state service, that's what the woman gives way because she believes, she herself, that she is not competitive enough. This is explained because of household obligations, because, well, objectively, we have to give birth to children and to take care of them at least to a certain age. But this exists in the entire world, but the approach is different across the world. First of all, because the women themselves position themselves differently. Then it's typical for Ukraine and East Slavic countries at all in general. And if we were to speak about how can we change the situation, yes we can, but how a famous hero has said, the dilapidation is in your heads. If we change our understanding of our status, of our opportunities, of our potential, only then the situation will change. And honestly, the biggest positive for me is the change of female representation in the parliament. The question is not that there's a bit more of you women in there, it's just that you're different women than were in the previous parliaments. And as an unbiased person in politics, I see this very clear. Thank you, Ms. Ella, for such a motivating speech. I agree with you 100%. We have a different quality of women in the parliament. It's really high if we were to see. Yeah, those are some really powerful women if we were to see in parliament. The balance is like, and speeches in parliament is 50-50. Women are now more active and speak up more often. We're now coming up to questions to Ella. Please ask questions, not just say motivating speeches, because everybody can make those. So please raise your hands, those who would like to ask questions. There. I'll give you the microphone. Thank you. Thank you for your microphone. Ms. Ella, the question to you from Ella Lama, Sales Organization Center of Democratic Development, about our most painful topic, the statistics. In many of your publications on the website of your institution, there is a lot of various interesting, really necessary materials which are gender neutral, and I understand why, because gathering statistics, well, we do it by hand right now. Your perspectives, your propositions. With whom did you speak? To whom did you ask questions? Because people listen to you, are a guru of sorts, and only you can help us with gender statistics. Be thorough due to decentralization. This is a whole another topic, because that's how you ask it. Well, I am respectable, not much. Well, let's talk about statistics until we conduct another survey of the population. We can speak about quality statistics, gender-oriented, not gender-oriented. I hope that would help. I'm gonna use the fact that there are MPs present here. That in 2018 we will conduct the population census, and then we may finally be able to conduct a thorough population census, a lot of issues would be answered by the questions of gender situation in Ukraine with the help of the census. This won't be wage questions, absolutely, but there will be enough questions about the women's status on the labor market, and we will be able to compare finally using entirely correct information, precise information, the situation with men and women. If we don't conduct the census, if we don't implement demographic register, we won't be able to do anything. Any selective studies are now very imprecise. The next question. Anybody want to ask a question? Who's ready? Well, I think that Marcel, you've covered the topic thoroughly. Oh yes. Good afternoon, Marcel. I am from Oksana, and you've raised the question in the dilapidation in the heads of our women, and I would like to ask learn in more detail. Do you have an opinion on how this activity, this dilapidation, can be eliminated from the heads of our Ukrainian women? Because I work directly with decentralization implementation in our communities, and I see how inactive our women in the aspect that there are not enough self-confidence even. And even when they say really important, really deep things, they are afraid to voice this before all other people and defend their position, their opinion. If you have any tips about that, how to fight this in places, really have to implement a really serious advertisement campaign, propaganda campaign even. It's a Soviet war, but this is really what it is. If we were to explain women that they are not worse, that they can present good practice. Please look at our TV. What do we see on TV day and night? Everything is bad. There's a catastrophe. Ukraine is destroyed. That's it. Let us show a little bit of good examples, good practices, good occurrences for a woman to have an example of what to strive to. Why not to show the fate of our female MPs? Why not show, well, by Ukrainian standards there are a lot of women appearing in the highest branches of the executive government. Why not show the executive branch, how all of these women, how did they get there? Why does it always happen that when there's a beautiful woman on this position, we start talking about whatever, but what's important? Why? What? A beautiful woman can be smart at the same time, but is that impossible? And I believe that we should start from the kindergarten, from the very early stage in school. We shouldn't separate boys and girls. One learns to be a mechanic, and another learns to sew and mend clothes. From my personal experience, my son learned since the age of 3 to cook, to bake cakes, because, well, I thought that this was something that's needed. Thank you, Marcella. I'm glad to present the next speaker. It's Oksana Markarova, the first deputy of the Minister of Finance of Ukraine. I have a question, which you may answer but not answer. In the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine, 2 key agencies, Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Justice, the first deputies are women, with Minister Daniluk, who's always abroad, and the Minister Petrenko, who's actively presenting on TV. It's seen that it's obvious that women are actually controlling the ministries, and what the strategy, the women being there in the background, really influence the decisions in the country. Is it, or is it something else? You can just omit this question. And why did you get the Minister of Social Politics, Ministry of Education? Ministry of Education is all right, but what I'd like to say, the Ministry of Justice, every order, or Ministry of Fuels or of Education goes through the Ministry of Justice. No action in the state won't happen without the Ministry of Justice. The Ministry of Finance, all of this is good intentions without substantiation. So these are two agencies. Oksana Markarova, the first Deputy Minister of Finance, the floor is yours. I'd like to answer the question of quantity, whether it's many or not many women in the executive branch and which positions. I'm gonna move on from this to the question of quality. I'd like us to imagine this simple image. I won't show you, but please imagine a football field or soccer field with a 1.5 meter fence, and there are all kinds of men and women try to watch the game is happening on the field, and people who are taller will see no problem. People who are smaller won't see it. This is the example of lack of equality of opportunity for people who would like to see the soccer match, the football match. Its problem can be solved in two ways. Is to take some chairs, boxes to raise those people who can't see, and they will be able to see through this fence. And this is the best way to solve this. If we were to speak about equal opportunities for men and women, these are quotas and other things that will help us to raise something somewhere quicker. This is the correct approach, an important approach, but they are short term and they won't solve the problem. At least that's what I believe. The other question is that we may change this opaque fence with a transparent fence, and they will see this whatever is their height. How can you change this? Is the new standard in budgeting, gender related budgeting, which is implemented in many European countries already. Right now it's just a pilot project. What is it? Because most of the people who think about gender-oriented budgeting, they think that this is a question of planning how many men, how many women. This is not about that, not just about that at least. If we were to speak about budget, local budgets, private corporation budget, this is related to all budgets, family budgets even. They are based on several simple principles. And usually the principles are very rarely connected with are very rarely zero-based. They are based on what was in the last year. We had a budget, we had goals and efficiency metrics, and we look and we see if we whether achieved them or we didn't achieve them, and then move on. If if gender issues are not regulated in the efficiency metrics, then we are dragging from one year's budget to the next the question of gender bias. Right now, Ella has spoken really nicely about the separation into of girls and boys into different school subjects in many places, which is being implemented in many places of gender-oriented budgeting. We have several key ministries which take part in it, and there are some municipalities and regional bodies which take part in it. We saw, for instance, in Kiev, how is the budget calculated, how does it calculate the requirement to child groups to finance. For since Soviet times, boxing is for boys, gymnastics is for girls. What we have as a result is empty boxing rings in some places because there were girls wanted to go boxing, and there was a disproportionate amount of them compared to boys that year being born. And all of this begins from the concept from propaganda. This has to be done all the time. But this will be part of our life only when this is entirely implemented on our financial documents, is on the state level, on the local level, because yes, after decentralization, a lot of issues are still regulated locally. 90% of local budgets are being approved before we approve the local budget, and in the large corporations. What can we do here? Because it was said that women are not, don't want to do it themselves, are not active themselves. Really though, women are very practical, I believe, and a woman should always think of both about her work, about the family, about herself, and help someone else. And we always try to find. We have to find this balance, and this is sometimes a harmful advice, because when you look for balance, you may only find depression, so to say, because you have to find what you like and what captures you, and build your balance after that. Because if somebody wants to prefers family, build around that. If you like career, build around that. Just 1 minute. Not to feel guilty about that, but for a woman to think and want to do more in the economy, because everybody knows that the more women take part in the economy, the better results of growth of the GDP. That doesn't have to be proven anymore. How to motivate women to take part in this? They have to be given the opportunity. We need kindergartens. We have to have all of this has to be shown in the financial document. Gender-oriented budgeting should become not a pilot project, but a part of our budgetary code, which I hope next year, together with the midterm budgeting, will be implemented, and then we will move forward much further. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Oksana. Any questions? Nataliia, civil activist from Khmelnytsky. I got two questions. Firstly, when are we going to get specific programs in this country supporting women's entrepreneurship? We motivate women's organizations, but we need some resources for women to enjoy some startup capital to start a business. And secondly, Canada offered 20 million to support women's entrepreneurship. Where's this money? Let me know if you know something about that. I don't know what you're talking about. Canada provided 20 million. There is an entire project, which is a GRB project. I can tell you about that. When it comes to funds that you mentioned, I don't know what is that about. I can check with the colleagues, cannot tell you right now. Speaking of supporting women's entrepreneurship, well, we failed to support entrepreneurship all in all, not just women's entrepreneurship. Andriy Pyshnyi is speaking later on today, and he will tell us about the big program we began, Build Your Own Business, through the Oschadbank. It's not just the Oschadbank doing that. I think it's going to be a comprehensive government program involving local budgets, and then we're going to get funds and offer opportunities to entrepreneurs, including women. So, when we look through statistics, and sometimes there's not enough of that, but we can use big data. We launched a portal for the use of public funds, and that's big data thing. Over the last couple of years, in that portal we have gotten lots of updates from the key spending units. It's like data about data, and we gather a lot of interesting information. Women do better reporting. They supply updates more quickly. So, as soon as we have supported entrepreneurship better, women will stand a better chance to do better in this, and we just need to help them with this. Thank you, and one more question. Speaking of the new gender equality program, which is in the making right now, will it feature the GRB project? The Minister of Finance has not submitted this idea for the new program. And gender policy is a cross-cutting issue. Will social programs of your ministry will carry the component of gender-based budgeting? It is an important thing in terms of decentralization and other social programs. It should be a cross-cutting issue to get this all to work. And we can see this in the pilot projects we do. There is a pilot project going on in the Ministry of Education and Health, but that's not enough. Gender budgeting should underpin each budget program, then it's gonna work. You cannot develop something here, but do nothing there. The principle of the GRB should be a part of the budget code, and it should be a requirement for all programs. It's gonna become a new standard. I wonder how come it's not a part of that, because we have been submitting our plans and products for the last 3 years based on pilot projects, and this year we can extend it, I think, towards 2018. We're gonna train everybody else who will train their likes, and then it's gonna become a legislative requirement. Then it's about evaluating the quality of budgets, which will be developed afterwards. One more short question, please. Charity Fund Молода Гвардия. My question is this. What does the Minister of Finance think about the investment optimization project, which will help deliver maximum positive results within the shortest possible time as a way of fighting corruption and crisis? We have been trying to do something in this regard. There is an academician who spearheaded that initiative, but he has not been able to provide this project. It will cover Odessa, Chernomorye, Ukraine, so it's going to help communities go one level up. It will cover migrants which went to Europe. It will help get them back. Attracting inward investment and working with investors is the key priority, because that's one of the key drivers of economic growth. If you tell me more about the specific project you're talking about, I would be happy to discuss it with you. A year ago, in the Cabinet of Ministers, they set up the Ukraine Invest Office, which is supposed to promote investments and work with investors. So we work with investors that are existing in Ukraine, we work with Ukrainian businesses. Jointly with the Ministry of Economy, we seek to improve the business climate, and I work with Nataliia Mykolska's office to promote exports. Investments typically go to the sectors which are potential export sectors. And thirdly, we try to attract inward investments. So you can check with the office. We work all business days. I can leave you the contact information behind. I'd like to turn over to Andriy Pyshnyi, Oschadbank board chair.
Ми з вами тут дбаємося за чоловіків. Жити ми будемо, точніше, жінки нас переживуть.
We can see that some of the things that men do are wrong. We come under a lot of stress. We all are gray-haired right now.
Ми віддамо жінкам всю владу.
So maybe we should relinquish the power to the women, let them work, and men will live longer, have fun, and all of the domestic work will be done by robots. We have actually done that already. I can speak based on numbers because they reflect the practical situation. I think I run the best team in the banking system. 75% of them are women. 38, that's the average age. They've got higher economic or legal education. So children are sweeping the board, so work under the matriarchy and gender inequality.
Напевно, увійду, ви знаєте, в меншість тих підприємців, які дали відповідь на запитання, чи рівні права, чи рівні можливості у жінок.
Are trying to see if men and women enjoy equal rights in entrepreneurship. No, they do not. I think women have a bit stronger potential. I'm not saying this in order to win your liking, although I appreciate the audience. That's what I can see from the experience over the last 3 years. Oschadbank right now is undergoing an internal transformation. We keep improving business processes and managerial mechanisms, and in this process, you always get some new staffing challenges. Previously, we never had an HR unit. We had something else instead, but nowadays it's a powerful HR service which is taking care of human resource management. Over the last 3 years, and actually while preparing for this Congress, I checked some data. I can see that 2/3 of all job openings at the managerial level of the bank were filled by women. 1/3 of managers of regional branches of the bank are women. 1/3 of managers of all departments of the central office are women, if not more than that. So when we do the interview in order to choose the appropriate candidate for key positions, I typically personally do that sort of interviewing, and I can make comparisons. I can see what they do in the course of the interview, and I can see how they fare in a real-life situation at work. Women work more responsibly, more efficiently. You better feel the risk. It's more comfortable to work with you, at least that's my take on that. So I believe that this potential is there. You actually realize that sometimes you can't go one level up, but there is no upper limit. You just need to keep trying. Now, speaking of entrepreneurship, we launched a program which is called Build Your Own, and we analyzed the market and existing practices, and we chose 2 role models. One of them is about building entrepreneurship in Poland, which paid off, and in 2008 Poland has been able to overcome financial and economic crisis without an economic drop. That's the only EU member state which has shown economic growth instead of recession, because 56% of their GDP came from entrepreneurs. And now an important point, 1/3 out of those entrepreneurs are women. I would say 37% of those are women. They account for 56% of the Polish GDP, and that's women. Speaking of the Ukraine, that's interesting statistics. After launching the project Build Your Own, this whole thing is about money and about other things. It also has an educational component. It actually seeks to teach people to do entrepreneurship, to convince them that there's a need to do that. It also seeks to offer answers to urgent questions and show success stories. It is crucial that those who have succeeded would share that success with the audience's leaders, telling people how did they make it happen? So that program has become an awareness-raising portal. It is called Build Your Own. You're welcome to check it out. So in less than 2 months, that portal has been visited by more than 200,000. 16,000 registered with the portal. 40% of those registered in the portal are women. So that then works. We talk about that, it works. Some information is there, it works. The political component works. The activity in the parliament also works. The quotas and all of that. It all works. But ladies, you gotta understand that the key limit is there. It is in your head. Do not be afraid. If you can see a vacancy, a job opening, you feel like going for it, go for it, and then you will see how it's gonna play out. Thank you. Any questions? Just one thing, and that's for all of you. Agrarian, I have visited the website this morning. Only 12% of women are in your board, which is just one woman. Would you like to get more of them there, so that we could talk about top positions, not just all positions? There's only one woman in their board, which is 12%. Would you like to get more? Yes, we'd like to get more. The composition of the board is not complete yet, there is no quorum. But I would be delighted to welcome more women in the board. And I've got a few candidates now. The existing board is doing a good job, but I can see the potential for improved efficiency. And that would include getting more women on board, on the board. Well, by the Articles of Corporation, you get 11 board members, so you might still have 3 more women. I'm the key lobbyist of the women's participation in the board. Actually, I've been lucky with women all my life. I've got women in my family, sisters, nieces, daughters, everybody in my family is women. Speaking of the training you spoke about, does that have a gender policy component, which is about combating gender violence or sexism? Is that a part of the training that you offer to your co-workers? I don't know, actually. I would not make something up, but I just don't know. I will actually try and find out if that component is there. I actually believe that this component is seen in the staffing policy we pursue right now. You're welcome to check out the website, the portal, you will see it for yourselves. You might come up with your comments on that, you might see the need for including that component, and I can tell you we're going to take it on board. In the bank, we have had an internal university for the last year. That's a 12-module program that we do jointly with the Ukrainian banking school. That's a unique program. It features 12 modules, and that carries that component. I know it definitely. Okay, with this I'm happy to turn over to Nataliia, Mykolska, and following that, there's going to be a chance to ask questions of any of the panelists. Any questions will be welcome. Okay, Nataliia Mykolska, Deputy Deputy Minister of Economic Development and Trade. She is promoting exports, Ukrainian exports, and this woman has been taking care of the exports policy. So here's a question to you. You worked when Abramovich was the minister, and right now you're the only deputy out of all women that used to be working there. It used to be 6 women before. How did these changes affect you? It's not 6 of us. I wish there were 6 deputies. In the Ministry of Justice, there are lots of deputies. Well, I'd like to tell you about a few things. Luckily, Minister Ivaras and the first Vice Prime Minister offered me this job, and these people are gender advanced. So Ivaras would always say that he believes that women will turn Ukraine around, both business and government. Speaking of Stepan, he says that nobody does as much work as you do, so we might set higher standards. But back to what I wanted to tell you about. I'd like to reflect on the previous points that have been raised. I believe that, yes, the key limit is in our head, and it happens like that because it's been there for decades. Recently, I have made a post on Facebook when I visited a 1+1 show on TV, and I spoke about the program which has been going on for an entire year in the ministry. It's called She Exports. And the first 15 comments that followed the post suggested that women and exports, that's ridiculous. So the first comments I would get would say, why is that sitting in your mind? When you say women and exports, you might think of Irina Miroshnik. She is the owner of one of the largest company that produces packaging machinery in the Ukraine. She is an exporter and she's got babies, she's looking nicely. So why don't you think of Ukrainian creative industry representatives, architects, who work in Dubai, designing things for huge hotels, and they clean up big on that. So it's all about awareness raising, enlightenment. There are existing success stories of female exporters. They should share those success stories. That's what we gotta do. And we're doing that, especially in the sectors where nobody believes that women can sweep the board. We have come up with a project which is called I Am a Ukrainian IT, which is about Ukrainian women in the IT technology sector. We chose top women that run Ukrainian and foreign large companies, and we showed them the way they are, their role and their numbers in Ukraine, which is growing. And secondly, there are issues with the statistics, not just in the Ukraine. I was flying back from China reading Economist, and it says that statistical issues are everywhere, especially when it comes to gender problems in entrepreneurship. That's the problem across the world. Even the largest companies are not ready to report how women are promoted with them. They never report how much time they spend working because it's all about funding, it's all about potential sanctions. Not all of them are ready to reveal how much they pay as bonuses because it's a matter of contracts of one CEO and the other. There might be 2 people in the board and they might work in totally different conditions in terms of pay, especially if the contracts are different. So statistics is an acute issue. And in order to see what we should do about that, we have to figure out what the problem actually is. And thirdly, in order for women to succeed in entrepreneurship, they should be aware of that. They should learn from the success stories of others. But there should also be infrastructure in place. That means kindergartens, high schools, and things like that. Because right now, there is something that women face as a limit. Because very often they cannot combine their job and their babies and chores and household issues. Well, I'm not saying that men are not helping. They are ready to do it, and some of them really do it pretty well. But still, inadequate infrastructure limits the choice of a woman. And one more thing, I guess gender equality is about having a choice for a woman at a particular point in time. She might choose to work, or she might choose to stay at home with the baby for as long as it takes. And nobody's gonna blame you. If your baby is a month old and you go back to work, that's one thing. You might spend longer time with the baby if you think that's the way it should be. So there are existing stereotypes in this country. So sometimes if you go back to work a month after the delivery, you will be called a bad mother. Some believe that if you take care of your babies over a few years, then like you're really taking your time, and then that woman decides to strike it out on her own. Like, what were you doing over the last 7 years? It should have worked. But that's the choice a woman made, and she has the right for that. We need to show the success stories of both kinds, those who go back to work earlier and later. These are the women who began their career, their business, in a mature age, the kids have grown up, because all of that is us. Thank you. Any questions right now?
Пані Наталію, в мене запитання, які заходи запроваджує міністерство для стимулювання...
What does the ministry do to stimulate employers to consider equality issues at workplace?
Особисто я переконана, і це підтверджують дослідження, що проблема не...
Research findings indicate that the problem is not about women themselves, whatever is in their heads. The problem is there because there are existing challenges. So what do you do in your programs? How do you incentivize employers so that they would offer equal conditions and opportunities at the workplace for men and women, like flexible work hours, distant working, no harassment, reintegration programs after a baby break when the woman comes back to work. So what does the ministry do about that? Do you have any competitions to offer them any bonuses, rewards, or maybe sanctions? Well, speaking of gender and doing things at the workplace, it's not just about what you're saying. There is a need for a comprehensive approach to make it happen. Hopefully, as the gender officer has been appointed in the government, there's going to be a more comprehensive way of taking care of all of these matters. We have to take stock of existing problems. I'm responsible for Ukrainian exports. In the export strategy, it is said that a big problem is that women are little involved in export operations. As the World Bank says, if by 2025 we overcome the gender equality, the global GDP will grow up by $12 trillion. The Ukrainian GDP might quadruple in that case. So we have to look at that comprehensively, and we hope that the ideas in the export strategy will be taken on board comprehensively in the government action plan. It includes funding, respective events, and incentives and rewards will not do. I can tell you what we specifically do in exports. We've got a special program And you're all welcome to check out the website of the Exports Promotions Office. She exports. That's the thing for female entrepreneurs that would like to be a part of exports activities. That covers owners and managerial women. Managerial level includes everyone, the unit director, and that program has a few components. There is awareness raising, a lot of awareness raising is done these days. The second component is getting women to get together and communicate, it's networking, and that's where success stories of women can be highlighted and mentorship can be practiced. We've had some success stories with that. And in that part we do projects where we show Ukrainian women which have succeeded. And thirdly, the third component is a particular quota and a priority that is given to women in the trade missions of the Ukraine abroad. So when we send a trade mission from the Ukraine abroad, women take part in that, and businesses that are involved in that enjoy quotas, and that's how they can get promoted. We also verify the center of the international commerce in the Ukraine, and by 2020 we need to make sure that 2 billion female entrepreneurs are there in the world. So you can become a part of that program. So that's a practical way of looking out for female partners across the world.
Ще питання, будь ласка. Давайте пані, яка ще не задавала питання.
Дякую, Людмила Порохняк, Національна рада жінок України.
I'm with the National Council of Women of the Ukraine. Do you have any specific programs for rural women in this regard?
Ви знаєте, я кажу, дай Боже нашому теляті вовка з'їсти. Почали з того, на що був ресурс, чесно. Половина з програм є дистанційними. Якщо є доступ до інтернету, значну частину програм, наприклад, освітніх, можуть освоювати жінки, які знаходяться в сільській місцевості. Наприклад, програма «Експортна революція». Можна 2 роки вчитися дистанційно, безкоштовно в іноземних експертів.
Можна будь-якому спікеру задати.
Дуже дякуємо передусім цій жінці, яка хоче нас розширити на міжнародному
Thank you for what you're doing internationally. Is the Ukraine ready to collaborate with the leading foreign editions which present the best citizen countries across the globe? Like any book has not been released in this country for as long as there are difficulties in the East. If it could happen again, then tourism and the economy would be better. That would help the country. Thank you, but I think I'm going to check with you about that to see what it's really about. Tamara Grodova, Zaporozhye Charity Fund, Yena za Maybutnye. I've got a question to Ms. Markarova and Nataliia. Will the Ukraine practice philanthropy because women are engaged in social projects typically? Advanced countries fund these social projects at the expense of civil society funds which get replenished, and these funds are spent on solutions to social problems, and the government is involved in that. And these funds can only be there if there's going to be a percentage-based philanthropy. And I've got a question for the MPs. Since 2007, the Supreme Council, they registered a law on this matter. Oksana, tell us something about money. We've got issues with the regulation or stimulation of charity. And there is an interministerial council involving many people. It operates under the auspices of the deputy chair of the presidential administration, Mr. Pavlenko, and Vice Prime Minister Zivko is a part of that. We have had 4 meetings and we always discuss legislative changes and regulatory changes, which will allow us to segregate the kinds of things that are negative and it damages reputation. And then we will see how charity funds could do a better job. Some of them operate within their statutes, and then employers will see an incentive to work with those funds. So we really have to take care about a lot of things to make it happen. In 2018, we will address particular models. They're quite complicated, but they will allow for that philanthropy to happen. So that thing should be taken on board, and we're on this way. The gender component there is pretty high. In the charity work, you get a lot more women involved. There's something from Andriy about that. There is an important project that we've got with the USAID and the UNICEF Fund. And it addresses entrepreneurship and social issues. This project allows women, and not just women, I would not say it's just women's entrepreneurship, it is just the entrepreneurship, because to me, it's all about entrepreneurship. You've got equal competitive positions. You've got a competitive idea, go ahead, make it something. You are an entrepreneur. You might be a female entrepreneur, but what matters is that you are an entrepreneur. Equality should be right there in your mind. So social entrepreneurship is about having projects that are fit for provision of services or employment of people with limited capacities like ATO veterans, IDPs. These are serious social issues right now. And they might enjoy support from the USAID. They might get a loan from the bank with 5% APR. But there should be a business plan for that. So right now there are such programs, and the US government has helped us with that, and 100 million hryvnia worth of finance has been offered. But how many loans have been offered over the last 2 years in that program? What do you think? 7. In the Ukraine, social entrepreneurship is not there. In the Ukraine, they verified 150 entrepreneurs as social entrepreneurs. So there's room for improvement. That's where you can take initiative and do entrepreneurship, and you can do something good. So you're welcome to do it. There are mechanisms in place for that, there is support in place for that. This will help you make a business plan, do strategic analysis of your entrepreneurship initiative. There is a website or check with us for advice. We're open for that. Thank you. And the last question, Markarova. I've got a question for Ms. Libanova. You spoke of the need for awareness-raising campaign to raise this matter. But when we speak of female politicians at the regional level, there are elections held here and there in the amalgamated territorial communities. So apart from the campaign and all of those tools, there is need for funding. What to do about that? Where women could gain finance in order to become more active? I'm not sure that there is a need for separate finance for women. I have been surprised by the stance taken by the British MPs on that. They had merely 13% of women in the parliament at that time. That was in Vienna at the Women's Conference, and yet they would proudly say that we have made it happen without quotas. Quotas. It's like ladders or steps. They help you go all the way up, little by little. But I think it's better to remove barriers. And I'm not sure that funding will be a total solution to women's representation. But I do understand that in territorial communities, you're not going to get as many women as in the Supreme Council. That's what I have seen based on the updates I have received. That's an unfortunate fact. I understand that a woman can do more in a particular territory because she is a good household lady and she will be thrifty, she will spend money more reasonably. She will not build fountains on the central square.
Thank you very much. The last short question from me, from every speaker, just one sentence. What is the main problem of economic rights and opportunities of women, and how can you solve that? Just one sentence, please. One short answer. Well, I believe that the main problem, the main issue is that gender issues are not cross-cutting in budgeting and financing. When they become cross-cutting, then they will add additional opportunity, not just to women, but to men as well. And the men will be able to support women in their career aspirations, and then women will decide for themselves that they have the opportunity to move forward. Mr. Andriy, can I say two sentences? Can you just make it a long sentence? Oh, there was a study. Polish women entrepreneurs, 53% responded to the question whether they get the money for personal business. They expected help from men. That is correct, and that is mostly right. It's a family issue. I'm going to say why it's correct from the economic standpoint, because credit is always, loans is only obligation, responsibility, and only one out of 10 business initiatives are successful, and only one of those which are successful achieves development. And loans are always obligation. If you have an entrepreneurial initiative and you're ready to implement it, and 30% of women in Poland are entrepreneurs, and 40% of Ukrainian women are those interested in the program, build your own. So you just go out there and do it. Miss Nataliia. I'd like to comment about the expert. This is closer to me. Expert has several things there which prevent Ukrainian women to be successful. First is lack of knowledge. This is a very important thing. The other is the limitations in your head. It's the lack of known success stories. The other thing is lack of resources, including the lack of opportunity to receive loans. Women are given less loans than men in Ukraine. This is proven by a study. We're not talking about your bank, but by a more general study. And the last important thing is that there are traditional stereotypes that have to be broken. Thank you, Ella. Well, to come back to stereotypes, what's happening in our country? Not just in our country, but I'm not so interested in what's happening in Germany or Poland or, sorry, the United States of America. Ukraine is also important to me. What's happening in Ukraine? A woman helps a man on his job, a man helps a woman in the family. Men, until we think the following way, we will be responsible for everything that's happening in the family. When a man does not fulfill their fatherly obligations, which is what's happening in Ukraine since the Zaporozhian siege, men will be responsible for business, and women will be, best case, first deputy ministers, but they won't be ministers, won't be presidents, and all the rest. Thank you, Ella. Thank you to all the speakers. Thank you for your wonderful questions, and really, due to the fact that you've been actively listening, thank you very much. Thank you to the participants for this discussion, and Oleksii Mushak for your yes, please stay in your places because we have a short technical break, after which we will continue. Ladies and gentlemen, please stay in your places.
Для вашої зручної роботи ми забезпечуємо синхронний переклад двома мовами. Технічні пристрої для перекладу ви можете отримати біля зони реєстрації. Канал 1 – українська мова, канал 2 – англійська мова. Шановні гості, після невеличкої технічної перерви ми продовжимо. Просимо вас залишатися на своїх місцях. Пані та панове, з радістю повідомляємо, що сьогодні у нас на конгресі працюють такі локації. Дитяча кімната, 2 фотовиставки, спеціальне місце для фотографування, прес-вол та локація для роботи медіа. Шановні гості, за 1 хвилину ми розпочинаємо дискусію. Пані та панове, займайте свої місця в залі, ми розпочинаємо. Шановні гості, продовжуємо роботу засідання 4-ї дискусійної платформи «Розширення економічних можливостей та прав жінок». Модератор Oleksii Mushak, народний депутат України, член Комітету Верховної Ради України з питань аграрної політики та земельних відносин. А також запрошуємо спікерів та спікерок дискусійної платформи. Олена Koszarna, засновниця та головна виконавча директорка Horizon Capital. Надія Гладкевич, директорка групи компаній «Реноме». Бет Воронюк, канадська експертка з гендерних питань. Мікаела Демарія, директорка з комерційних операцій у Східній Європі та Центральній Азії, Туреччині та Кавказі у Procter & Gamble Company. Надається слово модератору Олексію Мушаку.
Дякую за слово. Я б насправді з задоволенням би запросив всіх спікерів на сцену. Запрошую вас. Доброго дня.
Good afternoon.
Да. Чекаємо ще Олену Koszarną.
Нагадаємо, наші спікери сьогодні – Олена Koszarna, Надія Гладкевич, Бет Воронюк, а також Мікаела Демарія.
Мікаела Демарія are the speakers for this panel. Dear friends, we are moving on with our discussion, broadening the economic rights and opportunities of women. I'd like to give the floor to Ms. Olena Koszarna, the founder and the founder and chief executive officer of Horizon Capital. Olena was born in Canada 23 years ago, moved to Ukraine, and in the previous discussion was wondering about money. And this is not accidental. Olena is an executive director of Horizon Capital, which is the biggest, one of the biggest investors in Ukraine, confirms that, and there you go. Good afternoon. I'd like to start with the fact that I always think that it's best to know about what you, to speak about what you know. That's why I'd like to speak of my path. I was born in 1969 in Canada. And when I think about the economic equality, I think about the following. Equality begins at home. What happened? I was born, and what we were told, because we were twins, two girls, they say Victor is going to kill you because he didn't just give birth to one girl but two. So let's think about this. I was looking at my aunt's 6 children and their family, one boy. The boy is the prince, the 5 girls are working, boy got most of the attention, didn't achieve anything, the girls achieved everything. So I believe that equality begins at home. And I think that every mother, every sister, every aunt, every grandma should think about this. What are we telling our girls? My parents told me anything is possible. There are no limits. And I always thought like that, and I didn't even compare myself to men. I decided that I have my way, I'm going to follow it, and I don't care about what others think. What do you think? I come home to Canada, and what my aunts want to know, are you married? Where is your husband? They don't want to know about me investing $500 million into this country, about my transactions. They just want to know about children and my husband. It's all right, I have a husband and 2 wonderful children, but when I was 30, they wanted to know, first and foremost, where's my husband? And I think that first of all, we have to think about what we tell our girls. And let me tell you that what my mother told me, and I think it's very important, that be financially independent. And I believe that equality begins from finance. If you have money, you're not asking somebody else for money, and this is very important, and I remember this and thought about this all the time. So right now, even we involved a new fund, $150 million, and I was all over the world, 25 countries, more than 100 investors. How many women do you think? 300. Who is the capital? This is very important, and I'd like to tell every woman that financial independence is very important, and we have to move towards that. The next thing, I never thought that my voice is irrelevant. I'm very often at conferences, round tables. I often conduct our own meetings in the company. You shouldn't be afraid. I tell everyone, brainstorming. There is no crazy, stupid idea. I advise everyone to raise their voice, to speak their mind. I often see this not happening, and I think this is what we have to do. And the third thing is that we all have obligations, not just help others. If we have professionalism, if we should tell them, we have to develop it, we have to notice it and do everything we can so that these wonderful women rose to the top. I'm going to give you an example from my organization. One woman, everybody tells me that we have to fire it. She's not as strong as others in investment heads. I thought. Then I gave her the hardest projects, and she won. She's wonderful. Everybody is satisfied with how she works. So I think that we are the same. When we see that there is the need to give credit to this woman, invest in her business, raise her, give her the opportunity, speak up about her achievements. We have to do this. The last thing they're going to say, I'm Canadian, and I see Canada. Justin Trudeau, what did he say? He said, when he became the Prime Minister, he said, in my cabinet of ministers will have 50% women. He was asked why. He said, because this is 2015, that's it. Political will is the same. Men have obligations. They have also make these decisions. I'd like to see in the next election that really, as you had yesterday, the Swedish ambassador, so that every second person in the election list should be a woman, and this is what has to be changed, and I think that men have a great obligation in that as well. Thank you.
Дякую, пані Олена. Питання, будь
Thank
ласка.
you, Lenna. Please, your questions.
Да, будь ласка, пані.
Please, you're welcome. Good afternoon, Tatiana Kavelian, Zaporozhye, the member of the local regional council. I listened to the previous panel, and right now I see business women, actual business women. And please tell me, do you have in Canada this social occurrence when rich men in the state hide after women's backs and write up their business to the women, put them as the de jure owners, please? Do you have such things happening in Canada? No statistics, gender statistics, not gender statistics, has this in the vocabulary. How should we name this phenomenon, and do such men deserve our respect as women? Canada is, of course, a country of immigrants, because I don't know the statistics. I can't respond whether this phenomenon is there, but we see this very often. That don't forget that in Canada, a small entrepreneur is the majority. 80–90% of economy is small, medium-sized enterprises. And we know that very often it so happens that men and women work together. It's a family business. So I believe that whether just to write the woman in as the owner, I also believe that we have to think about this in Ukraine. When we see a business owner, means whether she got it from her man or whether she built it herself, this is what we should pay attention to.
Дякую. Ще питання?
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Yes, you're welcome. Thank you, Canada, for respect to Ukrainians. A lot of Ukrainians are there, which helped to build this country. Are Canadian women and Ukrainian women are ready to conduct joint business today? Because I have many relatives in Canada which I don't even know, and I would like us to be equal, really, and proud. I don't know how to answer this question, whether we are ready to conduct joint business, because I believe everything begins with yourself. So even the ideas of what you want, I'm ready to work with talented people. I'm ready to work with professionals. I'm ready to work with honest people, good, honest partners. I can't say just if it's if a Canadian woman, if she has a strong partner in Ukraine, she's going to work with that partner. So this is a very individual thing, and it all starts from yourself. Irina Gerashchenko, your question? Dear Nataliia, I'd just like to express my 100% agreement that for a woman, Lenna, sorry, I misspoke, but I agree with you completely that for a woman, independence is key if she wants to unite family and career. You're now talking about women in business, but our Congress is dedicated a lot to increasing the amount of women in politics, and the woman of politics has to be independent to build her own path. And today we see a serious issue with this related to populism. We and Oleksii, Mushak, and our colleagues know that this populism, which nobody in the country believes, is that the woman, if she doesn't have the woman that doesn't have a man supporting her, or this financial basis which you've gathered for a long time, that such a woman can work The woman can work with politics without this, to being financially independent, without being supported by her family, by her man, and so on. Please tell me, how can we, in this issue, defeat this populism? Maybe you have a vision to defeat it from inside, or maybe from outside, where everyone requires that everyone in politics to be poor, honest, with angelic wigs behind the back, but at the same time we're independent and working for Ukraine, and they have to understand that independence requires decent pay for a woman official pay, and male politician as well, for him to be independent from the oligarchy. And how can you say this without having stones thrown at you, metaphorically? Well, how can you receive this wage with which you will be really independent and honest? Thank you. This is a very complicated question, and I believe that I'd like to turn to what I said in the beginning, that what we say to ourselves and to what we say to others. And I hope that Ukrainians, when they're gonna go to elections, they will think long and hard about these things, because really the world is changing, and you have a choice, and you have a voice and a vote, and everybody who votes is important. Every vote is important. How to fight this? To be honest, don't give even an opportunity for any power to populism. What this means is it did exist, and you should fight not with it, but for what's right, what's correct, for your way, follow your way, follow your path. And I think that's talking about what works, about success stories, about what was done, about good results, and hope that people will feel this, see this, listen to this, and understand the difference between what's real and what is being forced upon you. If we are anti-something, we give it power. So I see that this is a problem, but we have to pay attention to what's right, what's correct. Thank you. Thank you, Olena. Right now I'd like to give the floor to Nataliia, the head of the group of companies Renoma. You've finished the Kiev Polytechnic Institute, and I was also a graduate of that. This is a very manly, in my understanding, institute. That's not sexism. No, this is the reality. It has more men there than women. Why? Because Nadie has finished, has graduated from the what was related to governance systems. It was called the Institute of Practical Systems Analysis. We had 30 boys to 5 girls. Control system means like rocket control systems. How could you move on from controlling rockets to making your own business? You have to go to some specialized institute, study the secrets and so on. I remember all this. We have signed a secret folder every time. Well, yeah, we also had the first department. It was protecting the state secrets. After the institute, I worked on the radio technical factory, where we produced electronic equipment for planes. This was super secret. You know, our limitations are in our heads, and the limitations, whether it's male or women, we install these limits themselves. If you want to be a winner, then one of the aspects of successful people is not presenting yourself as a victim. I visited the first section where there were politicians yesterday, and we always say that women have to fight for equality. No, we just have to use our rights for equality. We put themselves in this victim position themselves. If we think that we are prohibited something, then we don't do this. I was prepared as a head of an entrepreneurship of a company, of this control governance and so on, and it's not related to whether it's a man and a woman, it's related to a personality and how ready are you to be responsible for someone else. This is how business is determined. Any desire, even in politics, if a politician is ready to take responsibility for another person, for an entire nation, then that person is a leader, and the person has removed the limitations in their head. What about whether it's a business is female or male? It's no such thing. It's just business, not male business or female business. I like the phrase of that Andriy Pyshnyi said. We are each other's clients, so to say. It's a partnership. There is no female business. There is no male business. There is desire to do something. If you have the desire, you will find solutions somehow to do this. About women in business, women in politics, I tried myself in all of these aspects, and I didn't enter politics anytime, not because I'm a woman. The first time I didn't come in because, someone asked to vote for another person, that happens. The other time I didn't get the most votes in the regional center because the regional council, I was aiming for that. I didn't get that because there was this new election system, and these are not from a party, but those who gathered more in regions, they entered the regional council, and I believe that this is a discrimination, but a signal from my faith that I should do business because that's what I'm good at. And business can't be, I understand that big business, middle-sized business can't be successful if there is no support from the small business. That's why I created this civil society organization together with several people, and I believe that the experience I have in governance and business creation, I can share it, and this is not related to just men and women, this is related to the development of entrepreneurship as a whole. And I now control a group of companies, over 20 entrepreneurships, all kinds of them. This is construction, IT, one of the biggest entrepreneurships in Ukraine. This is the elite of Ukrainian banking self-service technologies. This is metalworking, all kinds of things. And most of them are not traditionally female professions, but I have to do this. I choose top managers as part of my obligation, and where there is synergy of men and women, you get the best business. I saw statistics once. Employees mostly from the working population, 0.6% are women and 1.2% are men. What does this mean? Men are more risk-driven, but they are employees. They are the people who are more ready to take more responsibility towards others. This is a human physiology, and we can't change it. We have to understand what this synergy should be between us, men and women. A woman who is protector, if business has both men and women, then business flourishes. I talk about business, but I think the same can be done, same applies to politics, to civil life, and we should, that next forums shouldn't have 99% women, they should also have men, then we will hear each other. then we will better understand each other, because maybe it sounds, I haven't encountered any pressure, any discrimination. Moreover, in my company, I don't feel this. For a time, I had more women than men, but intuitively, not through plan. I now correct the balance of men and women because I see that synergy is better. Once again, the company is 27 years old and the average age of company is 34, and they're going to say that young people think differently right now. We have a lot of stereotypes because older people, older generations were taught that you have to protect your family, you have to be a family woman. These are the stereotypes in our head, and to defeat the stereotypes, the Russian spoke yesterday that there were not enough laws. I think the generation has to change. There should be a generation that thinks things differently. And coming back to the fact that the average age is 34 years old, there is no discrimination, gender inequality. Business measures people on their abilities, business opportunities, business capabilities, sorry, not the gender aspect. And to finalize my maybe a bit chaotic speech, because I had a lot to say, the biggest our issue is breaking stereotypes. And we should give an opportunity to all of us to believe in ourselves and not to think of ourselves as of lesser value. I wish you best of luck. Thank you, Nataliia. Please, questions.
Yulia, NGO Ukraine Without Torture. You say that you also have an NGO that you established. Is it still around? And if so, what does it do? 2 years ago, we started a platform of interaction called Prostir, and that's in Rovno city. It is around, it is evolving, and it's about community building. We are there to develop entrepreneurship, and we make living in Rovno more attractive. And one of the things we do is mentorship. Mentorship is about helping young and maybe not very young people willing to start a business, the ones that cannot afford paid services. They can actually come to check with their mentors for free. That's what we do in that NGO. You're welcome to check with us. I'm going back to Rovno after lunch today, and my business partner who runs Rahal, he is speaking about leadership later on today, by the way. All right, anything else? I've got a question for Nataliia. You say there's no discrimination, everything's fine. The average age is 34 years. Isn't that a discrimination by itself? What do you think? When I was saying that, I might have expected that question in return. Well, I'm not 34, as you can see. Well, there are no age limits with us. We never think of that limit at all when we take people to work with us. Maybe the pace that we set is good for the younger people, typically. To me, as a businesswoman, it is important. It's not important what is your physical age, it is important what is your emotional status. And I pick people out based on their emotional qualities, like are they ready to move on, are they ready to go places. Until recently, the chair of the supervisory board was somebody who is 62. Now she works with one of the banks as the deputy board chair. So think it's a good combination of age and youth. That's a good synergy to me because youngsters are not afraid of some new endeavors, and older people are typically based so much on their prior experience. But that blending is good, and young people will actually break new ground. Okay, there are lots of more questions coming up, but I had promised one for this lady. Oksana from Lutsk City. I have enjoyed these two sessions and strategic discussions, and there seems to be a trend suggesting that women's business is just business. It doesn't matter if it's women's entrepreneurship or just entrepreneurship. So if we leave out the woman's component, it's not quite right. Yes, it is a competitive environment, but still we don't have many women there. I don't know why. I wonder why. What are the barriers? Because we can go ahead and say, why are we doing the Women's Forum or Congress? Let's do just a Congress or a forum. So, would you agree with this? Is there a need to include the gender component in order to remove the barriers and make with a more conducive environment for both men and women in business? I would appreciate a brief answer because there are two more questions coming up. I suggest that we speak about that separately. I'm in favor of getting men and women communicate between each other.
Насправді, коли мене запрошує молодіжний парламент, і в мене буде виступ в суботу, там більшість дівчат. Питання, куди дівчата діваються, коли стають старшими. Ви знаєте, це складне питання, тому що якщо говорити про гендерну рівність, то треба говорити про такі болючі питання, як ці патрональні наші залишки в законах, що жінкам не можна яких-либо дітей їздити у відрядження. Ми вже себе таке становище, що наказують, взагалі роботодавці можуть наказати за такі речі. Можна жінкам працювати в нічну зміну, коли двоє малих дітей. Жінкам треба додатково давати 2 тижні відпустки, тому що двоє малих дітей. А чому не чоловікам? Питання в тому, я не говорю...
Дивіться, от у нас, давайте, є питання, відповідь. Просто ми так можемо дуже...
Я вам відповіла, що я за те, щоб говорити про гендерну рівність разом.
Natalia Tarasenko from Zhytomyr City. In your talk, you mentioned something about stereotypes. Could you let me in on your secret about that? Everybody has stereotypes, but what do you do about your stereotypes from your experience, if any? There are stereotypes, certainly, but I believe that man has a lot more advantages vis-a-vis. Women have a lot more advantages vis-a-vis men in business in particular. We're more sensitive, and when we promote something in business, we can respond more flexibly to whatever happens. We can see the mindset of a partner or a competitor. It's easy to deal with the stereotypes. You have to do the kinds of things you are afraid of doing. I can only see advantages of being a woman in business. Feminine sex makes you stronger and it gives you better opportunities. That's what I think of that. Okay, anything else? Let me see. Oleksii, Coca-Cola. In the Ukraine, it is known that women are 23% less paid than men. In your company, how do you keep the pay balance? And one more question. According to psychologists, women are in need of support and promotion to higher positions. It's a trendy thing in the world, like their need of help. Men are trying to go for it, no matter if they're capable of doing things there or not. Women are in need of that support, I admit it, but what do you do to help them with that? I just employ them. That's what I do.
Правда, я міряю людей не по
I never go by the sex, I go by the capabilities of a particular person in business. I'm the executive director of this group, and I'm also a co-owner of this company. So I'm interested in people of either sex to be able to make good money, capable and responsible for others. I can tell you, it's not like women are supposed to be promoted. Those that would like to get promoted will get promoted. I made my choice, and I've got 3 partners in business that are men, and at a certain point they wanted to leave the business, and I said, I'm gonna go on and continue, I can do it. So men can give up if you want to move on, I mean, they can let you do that, and there's no opposition there. Thank you. I think it's been a fruitful discussion featuring some hard questions, but I like that. Thank you, Nataliia. With this, I would like to move on to Ms. Koszarny, the Canadian expert in gender.
I'm sorry, despite my Ukrainian family name, I don't speak Ukrainian, so you're going to need to
українською я не говорю, тому кому потрібно, то надягайте навушники.
So I'd like to thank the organizers very much for the invitation to be here today and to share with you a little bit more of the Canadian experience. I find the discussion absolutely fascinating because you would have some of the same differences of in Canada, but I think there is a very strong emerging awareness that there are very clear gender biases in the Canadian economy, that women do face obstacles that men do not face, and this is something that has to be systematically and strategically addressed. And we're doing more and more research on what people are calling unconscious bias. Bias that we're not even aware of, or bias that even women have against other women. So, for example, a recent study looked at an investment opportunity. They call it in venture capital a pitch. And they made a video, and the video had 2 versions, and it was exactly identical, the same pictures, the same text. In one case, a man narrated the video, and in the second case, a woman narrated the video. And they showed it to people and asked, would you fund this? Do you think this is a good, would you trust this business? The video narrated by the man, over 2/3 of the people said they would fund it. The exact same information, when it was narrated by a woman, only over 1/3 said they would fund it. And people say that business is just business. I think we also are seeing that there are gender biases that's part of this equation. But anyway, let me tell you a little bit about Canada. We do have one of the highest female participation rates in the workforce of G7 countries. The percentage of women who work outside the home has increased from 42% to over 60% in the last 30 years. This has been one of the major social changes in Canada. And as Oleksii was saying, it's partly driven by this desire for financial independence and to own and control your own money. But we also have some barriers to women. Women are twice as likely as men to work part-time, even though they would like to work full-time. Only 2 of the highest paid chief executive officers in Canada are women. On average, women do 90 minutes more per day of household work. I think that's a little bit less than what the video showed us in Ukraine, but it's still an important element. Close to 60% of the people earning minimum wage are women. And we also face a very stubborn gender wage gap, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. I'd like to just mention briefly 3 different issues or initiatives from Canada, and one is the issue of gender budgeting. Canada actually is coming to this later than Ukraine. I've heard many examples of gender budgeting in Ukraine in the last few years, but this year was the very first year that our national budget had an official gender analysis. In the budget presented to the Parliament, there was one chapter that tried to look at gender issues. And this is a result of the emphasis of our new government on gender equality. This analysis found that there were over 60 different budget measures that had a differential impact on women and men. So they found that investments in skills training, investments in infrastructure, these would all benefit men more than women because of the division of who works in what sector. But they also noted, and I heard this too, that there often wasn't good data to do the analysis. So it's something that is a very promising start and something that we're looking forward to developing in the future. A second issue is the whole discussion of whether or not there should be quotas to increase the number of women on private company boards. I heard the question earlier today on this issue, and it's a hot topic in Canada because Canada does lag behind many other countries in this respect. Just over 20% of all board seats on the Canadian Stock Index are held by women. And furthermore, approximately half of companies listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange have no women on their board. Half have not even a single woman. And so we're looking to other countries for advice and for experience. Norway and others have made progress in increasing the number of women on corporate boards through mandatory quotas. Earlier this week, the European Commission announced that it would push for a 40% quota on company boards. And I don't think we're quite ready to go for mandatory quotas, but there's been a lot of discussion on the importance of public disclosure and companies making very clear what their numbers are. And on developing explicit strategies. What's their timeline? Yes, I'm looking for more women, but I plan to have 2 more women by 2019, 4 more women by 21, actual targets. The final issue that I'd like to just mention briefly is the gender pay gap that we heard about. It's been a very, very stubborn issue in Canada. Even when you look at men and women doing more or less the same work, women earn 88 cents for every dollar that men earn. The gap increases if you look at overall earnings. It's because women tend to work more at part-time jobs. Women take time out of their careers to spend with their kids. And women also work in less well-paid sectors. So, for example, in Canada, a truck driver, which are 97% men, they have an annual wage of approximately $45,000. While early childhood educators, the people who look after our kids, our most valuable element, our most valuable in our lives, earn just over $25,000. And certainly I think my sons were more important than trucks, yet we have this imbalance in what we value in our society. And as I said, the discouraging aspect is that we haven't seen much progress in the last few years. But if I can what are some of the insights I would like to conclude with? It's that the gender inequalities in the Canadian economy have a cost. They have a cost for individual women. We tend to earn less over our lifetime, but it costs the economy as a whole. There have been studies that have said that if we could increase gender equality in the economy, we could add $150 billion to GDP growth by 2026. This is not insignificant. Second, which gives me more cause for optimism, is that there is more and more discussion of these issues. Thanks to recent political developments, gender inequality, the role of women in society, the role of men as feminists in supporting women in the economy is getting more and more attention. And finally, despite the slow progress to date, there are concrete steps. We do have lessons. There are things that governments can do. There are things that private sector can take. This includes better data, more analysis, public disclosure, setting targets, and investing in concrete strategies to bring about change. Дякую.
Дякую, пані Бет. Насправді, половина з присутніх не одягла наушники, що значить, що насправді у нас досить таки сильно росте знання англійської мови. Це приємно. Питання, будь ласка, до пані.
All right, any questions for Beth? Це питання про дискримінацію в політиці. Є багато тут представників парламенту в аудиторії. Що ви думаєте, от за 2 роки з моменту Труду там призначили 15% в складі кабінету, це були жінки. Як це повпливало на ситуацію? Як політика такого ожіночування кабінету проявляється на сьогодні?
Питання, як дискримінація в політиці, власне, відсутність жінок у політиці, питання стосовно цього. В канадському уряді 50% жінок в кабінеті Трюдо. Які результати цього? 2 роки пройшло, ми можемо бачити вже результати, які, на вашу думку, знищені чи зрушені?
Я думаю, що тут є 2 рівні. По-перше, це те, що більше робиться
or gender analysis across all the policy areas of the Canadian government. For example, our Minister of Environment, who is a woman, has come out very strongly to say it's important to look at the gender dimensions of climate change. That climate change is not neutral, it affects women and men differently, and this is something that we have to look at. We even have our Minister of National Defense saying that gender analysis is something that should be conducted regularly throughout the operations of the Canadian Armed Forces. So we're seeing this, we still have a ways to go, but we're seeing this importance of bringing this perspective across all the policy sectors. And secondly, we're having more of a debate about increasing the number of women running and winning. Why don't women run? We have more discussion of the barriers to women running, that things that cyberbullying, our Canadian women politicians are subjected to horrible things being said about them online by anonymous trolls. And people are now starting to call this out and say it's not acceptable. Men are starting to say it's not acceptable. And we're having more of a discussion on how can we make even the Parliament better for not just women who want to combine being a parliamentarian with kids, but men, to make it more family-friendly for men as well. So I think we're starting to see action on those 2 levels.
Ще питання? Да. Будь ласка.
А також запитання до Олени про ту ж саму відсоткову філантропію. Скажіть, будь ласка, що потрібно зробити Україні, щоб було так, як в Канаді, де 25% громадянин може дати чи громадські організації, чи
NGO from the citizen or to the fund in order to do social projects, and you get a reduction in taxes that you pay by 25%. In Vancouver, they have 630 million of capital, which is invested in securities, and that's the loan money that Ukraine does not have right now. So what do you think should be done by the Ukrainian civil society in order to get this kind of law passed in this country?
I don't know about what should be done to get a law passed, but I know that
постановку питання. Це національна філантропія, це дуже важливе розпочинання.
Individual citizens to support worthy causes and private sector companies to support worthy causes. In Canada, it is the vast majority of charity dollars go to large-scale initiatives, hospitals, disease work and prevention, and we still actually have work to do to encourage people to give to social causes that advance women. The local shelter for women fleeing domestic violence these are underfunded as well. So we still have work to do in Canada on this too.
Дозвольте, я дуже коротко прокоментую ваше питання. Дивіться, перше, те, що ви кажете, мені здається, більше стосується ендаумента. Це коли даються кошти, наприклад, як університету або ще якомусь, і він довгострокова історія, він потім все може фінансувати. З приводу
Speaking of the tax reliefs, well, NGOs can do some of that in the Ukraine. If you're a legal entity, 2% of the profits can go to cover current expenses, and you're not going to pay taxes on that amount. But before we discuss tax reliefs in the Ukraine, let's make sure that taxes get paid in this country in the first place.
Дякую. Зараз задоволення хочу передати.
Thank you. With this, I'd like to turn over to Mykolska. She runs the commercial operations in many areas in Procter & Gamble.
Добрий день. Unfortunately, like my colleague also,
Я, як і колега, також
an expertise in Ukrainian,
не володію українською, тому
unfortunately for the translation.
Будь ласка, одягніть навушники. Тим, кому потрібно, але половина зала у нас уже не розуміє.
I'm very honored to be here because gender equality is really something that is very close to my heart. As a woman and also as a mother of a daughter and a son. And I wish that the next time actually we have much more men into this audience because gender equality, I strongly believe, is not something for women that we need to adapt, but is actually for all of us, men and women. And what I wanted to share is some of the reason why I'm still in Procter & Gamble that I'm very proud of. And in Procter & Gamble, gender equality has actually been a journey. And I want to share some of the key accomplishments. Today, 45% of our global managers are women. In the leadership team, executive leadership team, 32% are women. In my own organization, in manufacturing plants, they're really run by women, many of them, like China, Brazil, US, South Korea, Mexico, Germany, Poland. Here in Ukraine, we had a woman, Julia Semichenko, up to her maternity leaves a few months ago. And actually, even in Japan, which is, many of you I'm sure know, it's a very male-dominant environment. We were the first company to have a female leader from the plant in manufacturing, and now it's run by Japanese women. So we made a lot of progress, but of course, the progress are never enough, right? So we still need to do more. There are two things in this work and in this journey that I want to highlight, and I think is very important for everybody. The first one is actually that we change from you need to adapt. You basically need to have an assertive style. You need to be a man. I was personally told I dress like a man. Okay? Yes, I don't anymore. I use dresses often enough. For today, I have trousers for the occasion, but dress like a man. You need to be more assertive. Okay? That's not my style. Right? So we really move from the kind of assimilation, which is, to me, not true gender equality or diversity, where you actually need to try to mimic. I'm never going to be a good copy of our great moderator if I just copy him, right? He's going to be perfect, and I'm going to be perfect to be who truly I am. And that for me is the change. So from assimilation, which is you actually need to fit in. You need to learn to be a male, to truly inclusiveness. Truly inclusive means it's you and your value for your characteristic and who you are. Again, I don't believe you're never going to be a good copy of somebody else, right? And actually, I will even take in a step forward. We're here, of course, for moral needs, okay? That's the right thing to do. But there is a business needs. We talked about greater GDP. McKinsey talked about $28 trillion opportunity for the global economy if we have gender equality.
Why? There is enough data on emotional intelligence that says that different style, the ability to adapt the style, it's actually winning. Okay? So that's one thing. But the second thing that I'm super proud of, and my daughter is very proud of, she talks at school, like my mom works for Procter & Gamble, look at the campaign, is actually have many insights within Procter & Gamble thanks to our work with the consumers. And we use these insights not only with internal, for us, to make it a better workplace, but also externally. We want to use the brands as the voice to actually try to uncover some of those prejudices, some of those unconscious biases, that they exist. We will be very naive to believe that they don't exist. I think all of you know that if someone comes to your home and your home is a mess, the guests will look at you, not at your husband or your partner, right? So those unconscious biases are there. And the question is, how do we get, first of all, the awareness and then raise up above those little voices that is in our brain, okay? And so what we're going to do in P&G with those inside, we're actually using the voice of our brands to try to spark a conversation, to start to drive a movement. It's not a secret that advertising has the power to confirm unconscious biases, right? To confirm certain behavior, or we can actually change and start the conversation. And that's what we think we have a duty. So it's not only a role, like having big global brands like Ariel, Always, Pantene, Head & Shoulders, and being so present into the media, having a media weight, it is our responsibility and duty to start those conversations. So one of the examples that I want to share, the reason why my daughter at school talks about the mom, is actually Always. Always is a brand that works on family protection across all life stages, designing and also selling the product. And a very delicate life stage for women is puberty. And that is where we see a 50% drop of self-confidence at puberty. And many little girls, they never recover the self-confidence. So what we've done, there are two things. First of all, we look into the data, and the data show that there is physical changes, and they don't know what to do with it. So we ran a puberty educational programs. We're now reaching more than 70 million girls around the world, more than 110,000 in Ukraine, actually, with this program, where we actually want to give the right information for the girl, but also for the mom and the dad. The father do have a role to play. The second thing is the emotional changes, because during puberty, this is a time when the girls get confronted with others and start to compare with others. And most importantly, they start to compare themselves with the social expected behavior. What you need to be, what you need to do. That's the hard thing. That's where 80% of the young girls do feel massive pressure from it. And that's why what we've done, we then look about it, and one of the expressions is like a girl. Like a girl is often linked, when you ask, to a negative, like a weak, you're very weak, and it's a negative expression. So we launch a campaign, I encourage you to go online and check on it, where actually we tackle the like a girl expression. And we saw that really, thanks to the campaign, before seeing the film, 17% only had a positive association with like a girl. And now actually it's more than 76%. And this gave us the courage to continue and to look for fear of failures, Olympic Games as an opportunity of don't quit sport in puberty. Don't drop the self-confidence. So talking about those issues, raising the awareness is the first one, and that's what I'm proud of.
Thank you, Michaela. As you mentioned me in your speech, I would like to ask a small question.
Питання. В чому основна складність в плані гендерної політики для вас і для вашої компанії на сьогодні?
Питання, яке найбільший виклик для пані Мікаели та для її компанії в гендерній політиці існує зараз?
So let me answer first personally, because I think there are two, like right for me and then for the company.
А потім про компанію.
So for me personally, the challenges that I had, I'm now more than, nearly 20 years in the company, and
I come from a very traditional Italian little village where the expectation of a woman was, are you going to get married to a very rich man and stay home?
Ви будете виходити за зручного чоловіка, тому там селище на декілька сотень людей, і ця жінка пішла до університету.
And then I study abroad 3 years. Wow, that's really weird. So many of it actually, the first challenge to your point is those prejudices, those social pressure, they're unconscious biases, they're those that you have in your head. The voice that your mama put in your head. And unfortunately, let me be honest, the voice that all of us put and we judge other people. We should, and this is our urge, please, ladies, let's stop to judge other women. You don't know their story. Okay? You don't know. One of the very good examples a few years ago was the global training leader for purchasing. And so I was running around and traveling a lot, and my husband took a 1.5 year sabbatical to stay home, write a book, and do what he wanted to do. So he went to the school reunion. The next day, and I stayed at home with the kids, and the next day I was judged at home from a female colleague about you didn't go to the school reunion. Now, I do believe, in my humble opinion, that men have a brain, and they can actually very good understanding school reunion, and actually they can play and should play a huge role in the education of the kids. But that little voice, they influence you about some of the choices, and they put you down, they lower your self-esteem. So that's the first change. The second piece, and this is more on a corporate point of view, and is more on a company point of view, and that's why I'm still in Procter & Gamble, and I believe in the company a lot, is there are 5 steps that all of us should do. Number 1, declare this as a priority. From the CEO up to the bottom, across all levels. Number 2, make it accountable. Everybody, men and women across all levels, need to have a measure and tracking success. Number 3, foster a level of a forum of inclusiveness, different style appreciated, look for performance, support women and men in their development. Number 4, partner with external companies that are very good in advancing women, like Mark, for example, the Men Advancing Real Change, so that also men advocate for women. And number 4, what we talked before also with Mrs. Libanova, is the key role of role modeling. Having those role models to show that this is possible and remain true to yourself.
Дякую, пані Мікаела. Зараз питання можна буде задати до будь-якого. Але перед цим пані Олена ще хотіла прокоментувати моє попереднє питання. Дуже коротко.
It is fun to listen to all of the panelists, and I would say that discrimination is there, and the problem is there too, and we got to do something about that. Are we supposed to make sure that we spend more time on women's empowerment? Yes, that's true. We got to do this actively enough. I know Irina Zumok, Yaroslava Johnson, Irina Mushak and their projects. We invest in women. We do it actively. I'm with the platform where you get 5,000 women's investors across the globe looking for projects where women are owners. Yes, we gotta do it. We gotta keep on this way. We admit there is a problem, so it is our duty. I'm with Kharkiv City Hall. We've got 2 people from the Kiev Polytechnical Institute. One is an MP, and the other one is a businesswoman. I have a question about education. They never teach us to make MPs or to...
Але в нас є гендерно-чутливі професії, і якщо в нас буде розширення економічних прав жінок та чоловіків, в нас є така професія як вчителька, бухгалтер, декілька таких гендерно-чутливих, медсестра. І як в цьому випадку ми повинні підвищувати економічні можливості цих
професій. Better economic empowerment in these professions, or maybe we need to make sure women choose more attractive professions. Before Nataliia responds to that, let me say that organizers anticipated that question, and the next panel will address this particular thing. Okay, over to Nataliia. Briefly, please. Education really matters, whether it's a teacher or a teacher is, or a nurse of any sex. And I mean, they all should enjoy decent pay, no matter what gender you are.
Дякую. Ще питання, будь ласка. Да, будь ласка.
I have a question for Mykolska. You spoke about this program for girls in puberty, but how can we become a part of this program? Where can I find it? I'd like for my daughter to possibly take part in something like that. How can I get in touch with you to learn more about that?
Actually, it would be a pleasure to get in touch with you. And we're here with much more example to share. And actually, it would be good if you link back with us. Now, in general, the one thing, if you're going to go into our website or Google some of our brands, many of those campaigns, you can actually have access directly into the digital platform. Right? And in terms of the puberty educational programs, in Ukraine specifically, we cover 90% of the urban areas into school. That's where actually we tackle for the puberty piece of the program.
Добре, дякую. Будь ласка, ще питання. Будь ласка.
Доброго дня, мене звати Ірина Озимак. Дякую дуже Олені Koszarny, що згадала про програми, які робить
Western NS Enterprise Fund programs.
Підтримує навчання дівчат у кодуванні. Так, вони кодують 3 місяці, це позаурочна шкільна програма.
Young girls, it's like the extramural program, and then they produce mobile apps which help address social issues or their identity. I have recently seen a lot of comments, and I wonder why it covers only girls. It seems to be a discrimination to me. So it's a question to all the women. How can we possibly involve men to make them feminists, so that it's not women who would create such platforms, but it should be men involved as well, because they can see what women do and what comes out of that, and this might be a supportive factor. Who is this question for?
Насправді, давайте, можна я теж відповім? Насправді, тому що
це
було сказано, як чоловіків зробити, так більше.
Because it's about making men like that. I think there should be love. Love will make it happen. In the broad sense of the word, I mean, it's love or passion. A man should be interested in seeing what the woman is doing, what kids are doing, something like that.
Can I comment to that? You're making a, sorry, there's an echo. You're making a very good, valid point. And I wish that the next time, again, we will be half and half here, right? So that we're actually all in it together. In PNG, what we've done to make this cultural change is actually to involve they're part of the task force, they're there to listen. We participated, some of the participated, for example, is an external collaboration organization that work on men advocating for real change, and they really do it in a way that they show up those unconscious privileges that actually many of the leaders that I was sitting there, they didn't realize, oh, because I'm a man, I was born with this privilege. I never realized. So the first step is awareness and involving them into the journey. So that's why for us, it's, you declare it as a priority and you make everybody accountable, men and women. It should stop to be a women problem, because if yes, we will always need to adapt instead of being inclusive. Right? We don't do it to be somebody else that we're not. We do it to drive better results because we can really give the full ourselves. So I think that's why involving them into the journey, raising aware about those privileges that are there, and don't judge it. They're just there. First step is awareness, and then confronting it.
Дякую. Ну тоді давайте останнє питання. Ми будемо рухатися згідно регламенту.
Олексію, тоді тобі питання. Все ж таки у нас тут представник парламенту, все ж таки ти на початку зазначив.
You're an MP. You said that female MPs are very active.
Чому ти вважаєш, як ти бачиш змінити відношення, коли
How do you think the male colleagues should change their attitude to the female MPs? When is that going to change? Because right now they're being rather skeptical.
Це питання про парламент чи питання загалом?
Is that a question about the parliament or what?
Я вважаю, що наступний парламент буде тот, про який тут багато кажуть.
Will be something we have been talking about. There will be women, some sort of emancipation and things like that. You see, right now there are lots of men because politics is a continuation of business. That's just my take on that. Lots of existing MPs think that their position and politics is the continuation of business. So when it comes to politics, then women are in equal terms with men in the parliament. That's true of the presidium and that's true of the chairmanship in the committees. Anna Gapko has been a very active chair. That's just my take on that.
Якщо ми подивимось по виступам, якщо ми зараз подивимось по виступам, ви ж хотіли правду? Якщо ми зараз подивимось про виступи.
You wanted the truth, here it is. If you listen to the speeches in the parliament, I think of Oksana Prodan, Oksana Kuzhin, Solianyk, Ira Gerashchenko, Irina Lutsenko, Yulia Tymoshenko, Ika Vaitsitska, Vika Sumar, and many others. They are speaking a lot in the parliament, so going by the number of their speeches, that's quite a lot. So again, speaking of the parliament, we just need to remove business from politics, and then there's going to be better representation of women in the parliament. That's what I think of it.
І оскільки ми вже там підходимо під кінець,
Okay, this panel is near in its end.
То давайте, я не знаю, там поділитися, не поділитися, але мені з одного боку було надзвичайно чомусь дискомфортно сидіти тут, тому що у мене я перший раз взагалі на форумі, який стосується там рівних можливостей. Я до цього там читав, аналізував щось, у мене є якесь своє бачення. У мене воно є, можливо, воно там не зовсім співпадає з тим баченням, яке тут є, але ж ми, якби не прийшли сюди готові рішення.
But right now, we don't have the ready solutions that we can share. Ukraine will have to find its way of doing it. It's not going to be the Canadian way of doing that. We're different. So there might be a few options. There might be some things that we are thinking of doing, and we can think of it because of this Congress. I appreciate all of you in here, because while sitting in here, you can see people are interested, and that makes it easier. Sometimes what I'm saying is not very much to your liking, but once again, it's been a wonderful experience to me being here and moderating this panel. I'd like to say big thanks to Beth and Elena and Michaela and Nadia for taking part in this, raising serious matters and responding to questions. And you're welcome to join us for the next panel, to be moderated by Oleksii, my colleague. I think it's going to be just as interesting and fantastic. Let's take lunch time. Thank you.
Дякуємо учасникам за цікаву дискусію, а також Олексію Мушаку за модерування. Шановні гості, оголошується перерва на обід 40 хвилин. Початок наступної дискусійної платформи о 12:50 з темою «Успішні жінки, успішні громади». Прохання не затримуватись. Пані та панове, оголошується перерва на обід 40 хвилин.